What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord, here with my two good buddies, the three amigos. I'm just a little bit sad this morning because of this morning's recent news. Mike Zuber is not going to be doing the 7 days a week anymore. Yep. And I had my little bit of a WTF moment. I won't say it because that will break the internet. Yeah, so don't worry. We spent a lot of time off camera crying, yelling at him, asking why in a screaming, shouty voice. But what we wanted to talk about in this very first one, I think, is something that's going to be really relevant to a lot of people. It's probably not relevant now, but wanted to talk about what the world looks like when your house is now upside down and you owe more on your house than what it's actually worth. So Mike, do us the honor of giving us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so let's make sure we set this up correctly because I love this question. And I was at a real estate meetup yesterday in Santa Clara County, which is the county that I live in. From the peak of May to today, is down about 15%. So if you bought a home in Santa Clara County at the peak, you could potentially be down 10 or 15%. So this is real, right? Some people are really looking at this, really thinking about, at least being upside down from their purchase price. Do they have equity or not? That's debatable because how much did they put down, all of that. But let's just say that, hey, you bought a property in Santa Clara County in May and you wake up this morning and you're upside down. That's a real thing. So a couple of things happen in the real world, right? Most folks today are still getting fixed rate mortgages, but let's just assume they have a 5-year ARM.
Yep.
Let's assume that, right? And they bought in May. So it's what, 6 months ago, 5 months ago? The first thing to know is nothing happens. Nothing happens. The lender doesn't call you. Let's just say, for example, you put 10% down. The house is now down 15%. You are truly negative equity. You're up, you owe 5% more. The asset, the debt that is on that house is worth more than the house. That's a problem in a lot of the world. Not a problem with 30 or even 5-year residential loans. The bank doesn't call. The bank doesn't just knock on your door. They don't send red envelopes saying, hey, you owe me money, get even today. That's not how all this works.
Right.
So as long as you continually make your payments, which, oh, by the way, never change, right? If you, at least for 5 years in this example, it's no harm, no foul. And generally speaking, if you bought in May, given historical facts, you won't move for 8 years. So, will Santa Clara County be up or down in 8 years? No idea, but the chances are one direction. So at the end of the day, it's really a scary headline. It probably makes for a great title on a video, but in practice, as an owner occupant, nothing changes. If you're a flipper or you're doing BRRRR or you're on short-term debt like Dave Ramsey, right? If you're Dave Ramsey and you have 90-day debt, you're effed. You're effed. And that's what busted out Dave Ramsey.
That's right.
But most people today have 30-year debt. If you don't have that, you probably have a 5-year ARM. So there's absolutely nothing that happens to you because your house is upside down 5% in Santa Clara County.
Sure. Dion?
So I'm going to cover this two different ways. One is from personal experience. Purchased a house around 2000 for about, it was $98,000. I did $104,000 loan. So it was, 105% loan to value because I wrapped the closing costs in it with a first-time homebuyer program that they had with an adjustable rate mortgage, because who can afford interest rates where they were in 2000, because like 5 was too much or whatever we had. So a couple years later, I go through a divorce and homes had appreciated because prices were going up. Prices only go up, right? So what makes sense? I refinance $150,000 to be able to give my spouse her portion of the equity because the house had gone up in value. Then I found out about the $89,000 in debt. But now I've got an asset worth around $100,000 as the prices crashed in 2008-9, financed at $150,000 that I've slowly started to pay with the amortization down, and had an adjustable rate mortgage. So while I talk on my channel often about not listening to my investing advice because I started investing after 2008, so I take information from you two who have been investing for longer, went through that crash, and I incorporate strategies from both of you to make sure I can be ready for a recession, a pandemic, a crash, and sleep like a baby. I also take from my own experience of don't have an adjustable rate on an asset you live in. Loan to value is huge. There right now, Bank of America is coming out with, hey, well, no closing costs, no mortgage insurance. Well, this, you can't move for 5 years or all this goes away, whatever the rules are. We're going to see more and more of that, of getting first-time home buyers into programs with no money down, which means more money leverage. So then if you're underwater, I'm hoping that while we're up to above, we're in double digits again on adjustable rate mortgages, I'm hoping that doesn't go up a bunch. In a few years, and this came out on Saks Realty this morning. I think it was a great point. We've talked about this a little. We talk about rates going up. We talk about rates going down. Almost everyone I interact with expects rate to go back down to 3% within the next couple of years, just because we have such short memories.
Right.
It's amazing how many people think that. Yeah.
And so if they don't, if you have an adjustable rate mortgage and we might never see below 5 points, 5% again, it's possible. Lenders are currently talking people into, you date the rate, like they say that. And I'm taking this right from Saks' video, so I want to give him credit. He said, you date the rate, you marry the property. But what if the rate only goes up?
Yes.
Lenders are saying, don't worry, even on a fixed rate mortgage right now, if you could just scrape by at 7%, in 2 years, you'll refinance it for, you'll be fine. This is a warning to the first-time home buyers out there of you marrying the rate, even if it's fixed rate, you're dating it if it's adjustable, and it could probably only get worse. It's just like dating. It's exactly the same. So my personal experience is don't be so highly leveraged that you go underwater when things adjust 10 to 15%. I did a 5% down duplex, and every one since then I've done more down. So we always talk about house hacking is great because you can do 3.5% FHA. You can also do FHA and put down 5 or 10%.
Okay.
You don't have to on a fourplex. You could put more to have a better leverage position. And again, stay away from adjustable rates. That's where being underwater can be really painful.
Yeah, and I think we're going to look at this in video number 2. There's so many people. I spoke at an event yesterday with 75 people, and almost everybody. I actually asked who expects rates to go down sometime in the next 3 to 5 years, and almost everybody raised their hands. And the folks that didn't raise their hands, I think, didn't understand the question, because everybody thinks rates are going down. And I'm like, dude, I'm so glad I did that 52-year spreadsheet, because yeah, it's possible, but you don't know. It's not a bet I'm going to make.
No. 1978 to what was it, like 1988 was how long it took for rates to get back to where they were, from 78 to 88 or 78 to 87, something like that.
We'll look at that in detail in video number 2, but yeah, I think it was 12 years.
Yeah.
And that was caused from coming off the gold standard. This is caused by us printing, and somebody tried to correct me on this the other day, 80% of our currency in the last 2 years. And they tried to say, well, we didn't do that. There's no way we did that. Well, in 2020, we printed 40% of our currency. And in 2021, we printed 31% of our currency, of a larger amount, because that included the 40%. It's about an 80% increase in the amount of currency rolling around, which doesn't mean assets are going to go up in value. It's just the dollar's losing value compared to our assets. We can't look at what's happening comparing it to the pound or to the all the other currencies. Yep. It's going to cost more to buy houses in this country because of how much currency there is.
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, we may have some short-term pain, but yeah, inflation is and has always been a monetary phenomenon. Too much money chasing too few goods, and we have too few homes. And then if we ever get immigration back or all of these things, it just goes one way. So
what will change things a lot, and just because I'm more involved on the construction side than you guys, is supply chain. That's the biggest issue. A lot of that stuff is made, not so much the lumber. A lot of that lumber is here in the States and in Canada. And so we've actually, as the supply chains opened up, as we haven't really seen a massive degradation in demand. But as we see that happening, lumbers continue to get less expensive. So it really proves that it wasn't an inflation. It was truly a supply chain issue. The challenge that we have is, I honestly believe it's more of a supply chain issue in other areas as well. Copper wire being 3x the price that it was 2 years ago. That is based on the fact that a lot of that comes from China, and China's been zero tolerance on COVID.
Yeah,
and it follows the narrative of too much money chasing too few a good. And I still get conversations today where they're just like, yep, don't have it. I walked into an automotive store yesterday. I'm sure you guys do this too. Walked into an automotive store yesterday and said, I need some power steering fluid.
Yeah, no, I don't do that.
Yeah, no, I know. That's why it's funny. But so I walk in, I'm like, yeah, I need this. And they're like, okay, sounds good. And I was like, this is what I need. And he's like, okay. And he's like, it should be right there on the shelf. And I look and I go, nope, not there. I was like, honestly, if you'd pointed it out, I felt like an idiot. But I looked for 5 minutes and I was like, all right, fine, now I'll ask.
Right.
And so he has to go in the back room. He goes, good news, last one. Dude, that should not be your last one. That's a quart. That's a quart, just one quart, one little bottle. That's one quart of that power steering fluid. That power steering fluid is probably used in about 13 million vehicles that are still on the road. The fact that you had to go to the back room and get the one last quart that you had, that's a problem. So I think it continues. I think supply chain continues to be an issue. I think the good that comes from this is that we recognize that globalizing the economy ain't so great, especially when you don't own a lot of that manufacturing. I am thrilled that we are coming back to a lot more onshoring and a lot more development here. I've said for a year and a half since I basically got on YouTube, we must become a financial superpower with energy. And we absolutely can do that. Dion, I see you moving.
Oh, I almost don't want to comment because you're leaning towards a political thing, and we are going to
It's not political.
Revote the same people in who are pushing companies out of the country by saying we need higher taxes on the rich. And so they'll go, fine, we'll move. You tax them in a state, they move to another state. You tax them in the country, they move to another country. So I mean, we're recognizing that. I think that's the good news that's coming from it. I don't know that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's the case, and it truly isn't a political statement. I don't care if you're blue, green, or red. I just believe personally in energy and the fact that since the world needs it to run, I want to be making as much of it for me and my own consumption as I can. So much so that when I have extra, to sell it to my buddies. That's what my preference is. So, Mike, any last thoughts on what we're talking about here as far as, mortgages being upside down and kind of what that means?
Yeah, I think for most folks, it's a scary concept. In practice, when your home is upside down, as long as you're making payments, your fixed rate debt, it doesn't really matter, right? You and I've talked about for years that net worth is not something we look at. Our net worth it doesn't matter. And the other thing to point out, again, what happened last time in the crisis was people went upside down and their mortgage payments reset. That was the double whammy that led to strategic defaults. You don't do that today because, again, you have a low rate and your option is renting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not like you're going to go from living in a home, getting foreclosed, and most people live in a car. No, you're going to rent somewhere, or you're going to double up it with roommates.
Mm-hmm.
That for most people is a non-starter. So if you got in and you have a mortgage rate at 4% or below, which 80% of people do, you're going to fight tooth and nail. That's the big thing that people don't get, is people are saying people are going to lose their job and blah, 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 blah. All this foreclosure inventory is coming. You don't understand. People will stop paying their car payments. They will stop paying Netflix. They will stop paying they will add roommates to stay in a home. Mm-hmm. Because it's right above food and water, shelter. So
yeah, we had people that were looking at 4-bedroom units that were roommates that were going down to a 3-bedroom unit. And I just said, but you started renting there 3 years ago. It's the same price as what my 3-bedroom unit is now. So all you're going to do is add more cost. And they're just like, yeah, but we think we want more space. Cool. I'm not discouraging that, but they down selected, but didn't save a dime. Yeah. Right. Because of that increased cost. Mike, where can everybody find you, my friend?
One rental at a time, and we will do videos, new videos Sunday through Thursday, and then we'll post a few Friday and Saturday just for fun.
The petition has begun.
I look forward to it.
Online petition. I'm just saying.
There you go.
Dion?
Wait till everybody finds out that's my fault. We haven't shared that yet, but we'll get there. We'll do that in another video.
Yeah, Dion, just so you know real quick, my resignation letter is going to be signed, sincerely, Matt and Dion.
And Dion, yes, that would be my fault too, but I'll take credit for that one happily. Last warning to anybody, if the people who watch our content all the time are probably aware of what I'm going to say, but if anybody found this video, isn't familiar with our content, and made it this far in the video, please write this down. For the last 2 years, you probably heard your friends and family say, look at all the equity we have in our house. Look how low rates are. I'm going to pull this money out. I'm going to buy an RV. I'm going to buy a boat. I'm going to buy a rental. I'm going to buy whatever they bought with it. Reduce their housing payment below where it was before, added the debt on the existing asset, and then got whatever they want. Hopefully it was the asset that produces cash flow, but some people bought something for fun. You have that equity now. Your house value is still up high, as high as it was in the last couple of years. It probably hasn't tanked yet. You have just as much equity as they did. But they had a 2 at the front of their interest rate, and you have a 7. Don't touch it. And you can find me right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom, ruining people's lives by talking Mike out of working 7 days a week.
Yeah, and you do realize that that becomes our responsibility to fill that time. Just making sure you know.
I was looking for a date to do my members only live streams. So now it looks like it's going to be Friday or Saturday. Actually, it's going to be Friday because people asked not the weekend. So
Sweet Lord, this is pandemonium and complete chaos. As I always say, we try and create great content for you. Please make sure that you hit that like button. Also subscribe and check me out on Instagram, Lumberjack Landlord, and also on my live stream, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time on Sundays currently, until I've heard all this silliness in the news, and we will be making life adjustments. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in video number 2. Talk soon.
ciao.